coming at you live at 10 a.m. in the morning. This is the Hungover Podcast, episode 87. I'm one of your hosts, Julien, alongside
Ivan, and welcome to our live update for our podcast. Now, we're streaming live on Twitch, but you can also find us on YouTube at our Hungover Gaming channel, and you can also find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play under the Hungover Podcast section. And if you go over there to the iTunes and you see and listen to this podcast or previous podcasts, and you like what you see or listen, you can send us a 5-star review. You think it's not that great, you want us just type in a 3-star review too. Hey, you know what? We'll hear the criticism. We'll hear the criticism. You know, we wanna improve this. We want you to tell us how you feel about this, and going forward. That's just what we want to know. We want to know what you think. How can we be better? What are we doing that's great? Is Julien just that handsome that the podcast works no matter what is going on? Just let us know. Ratings, reviews, or be part of the conversation here on Twitch. Julien.
Yes.
Did I nail it?
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay,
man.
cool.
Pretty good. Yeah, we're
every
coming at
single
you
time that we start this podcast, I start to talk over Julien, so I'm going to let him go.
Well, I just wanted to say we do this podcast live usually on Sundays. We record it live, usually in the PM hours, closer to around 6, 7 p.m. Eastern time, US Eastern time. But if you wanted to catch it live, today that's when you can typically do it. Today we're doing it because it is a holiday for both of us in America, where we celebrate the raping and pillaging of Native Americans. Americans love to celebrate that. So, actually, my girlfriend didn't get the day off, so never mind. We're just horrible people. But we're doing it live on Mondays, when you can typically get it at 9 a.m. The day after. So, Ivan, thank you for giving me the floor. I will indubitably, is that a word? Undoably, no.
Indubitably?
Indubitably, that's the word. Sorry, I was trying to think of my transition words. Fucking hate that word. I will start our podcast out because we usually ask each other, what have you been doing in the past week? What sort of media have you been consuming? And what'd you drink last night? Because this is the Hungover Podcast. Of course, I'll start out. Ivan, I wanted to tell you, I think it was last week, but I forgot to tell you that I watched, it's two things in my recap. So the first thing was, I went rock climbing, or whatever you call it, the free form climbing that all the hip kids are doing with their hacky sacks and their vegan diets and whatever. And life is good, man. It's just like I climb and I go and I do things and I drink some beer, some gluten-free beer or whatever. Those kids, the kids that are always inviting you. Yeah, man, it's a great time. You should come out. Just go climbing with us. Like, I actually caved in and went climbing. That is a fucking blast. You gotta try it. It is so much fun. I am now one of those kids. I'm gonna be a vegan tomorrow, so it's no. The climbing aspect is super fun. I would never be a vegan, but more power to you if you're gonna be a vegan. It is a serious workout of muscles you have never known existed in your body. Particularly the forearm muscles, surprisingly. I feel like I'm doing it wrong, but also just the way you're hanging on the rocks, it just makes you have to use the forearms. After about 30 minutes of climbing, I could hardly close my hands. It was crazy. But I managed to reach the top of some climbs. I guess you have to.
Nice.
The way
so you're
it
not
works,
strapped in at all?
No, right. Yeah. So they have both at this gym that I went to in Long Island City. But and if you wanted to look, they have day passes. So like these things are pretty easy to go in and start. I don't know if they have any in Syracuse. I'm pretty sure they would by now, or at least in Buffalo. So the way they have it, they have the people climb in with their strapped in thing, and they're like, okay, that's cool. But the real hardcore people don't climb with that, and you're really only climbing maximum around 10 feet high, so it's not incredibly high. And obviously below you is something pretty soft, so if you could still definitely really hurt yourself, so you want to be careful. And I think the real danger is actually not understanding how you're holding the rock. So or yeah, if you're holding it incorrectly, you're gonna hurt yourself. You could possibly tear a ligament in your forearm, or on the outside. I guess this is also the forearm, the top of your forearm, and not even know it because of all the adrenaline going through your, because you're really high up. I looked down at a point. I was like, oh god, how am I gonna make it down? But yeah, the way it works is they basically have color coordinated rocks or ledges that you're supposed to climb up. So you just follow the color. So it gets progressively difficult. I saw this one guy, like they have the overhang ones that are pretty much your like Spider-Man. This one guy was going feet first. Apparently he had to do it for one of them, and then he was gonna have to rotate himself around. It's
What?
It's a great workout. Two, for your upper body specifically, and two, there are a lot of attractive people there. So if you're looking to hook up and you know, like, meet someone cool, they're all really nice people as well. And they're all like looking to progress together. And three, it's like a puzzle. So it's a lot of fun. I'm not I
You're
love
one
this.
of them now. Oh my gosh.
I am one of them. But I
You're
have to say, it is
fully
like a puzzle.
A
It's
child
really cool.
of the corn.
You sit there and you like plan out your attack, and you're gonna go up. Am I gonna use my foot here? Am I gonna use my arm there? Where do I have to go? What do I have to do? But it's really fun. There was also this one that you had to literally like climb up, get started, get situated, and then jump up like I don't know, it was like, it must have been like a full body length up. You have to jump up off the wall to reach the top one, and it was pretty crazy.
That sounds really
and I
difficult.
saw one guy do it, and it was great. But anyways, that's what I did 2 weeks ago. Luckily, my arms have recovered since then. I'm debating going again. We'll see. But I also, on the movie sides of things, I've watched 3 movies since then. One of the movies was on my quest to learn Cantonese. Still going strong. I watched,
Nice.
actually 2 of them were. I watched this movie, 2 of the movies I saw are Chinese movies. The first one is an adaptation of an anime and manga called Initial D. I don't know if you know this show / manga. It's a racing.
Vampire Hunter D.
Initial D is a racing anime. Let's bring it up for background. Initial D.
Okay.
I can spell. It's super sick, or at least this movie was pretty cool, I thought. It's produced by Andy Lau, who is a very popular Cantonese, Hong Kong. Who's an Ip Man, that guy.
Okay, yeah.
Very popular actor, director, producer. He's like the Renaissance man of Chinese acting. Maybe it's because I feel like there aren't that many popular Hong Kong actors, because Hong Kong has a large film industry, so that's why I specifically say Hong Kong. And I feel like they don't have that large of a pool of actors, so you typically see, in or at least the movies that make it over to America that have at least English subtitles, will typically have at least 1 or 2 of from this pool of actors. So anyways, I thought it was in the movie, there's a lot of really cool shots of cars drifting, And the main character is like your typical anime protagonist. He's or well, not that's there are such a wide variety of anime protagonists. Never mind. Um, but he's like a he's a very gifted driver. He can take all these drifts and drive really fast in a shitty car somehow. And it's real. It must. I've never read the manga or watched the anime, so I don't really know how authentic this movie was to the show. To the show. But it seemed like they. I don't understand why they got a Hong Kong adaptation of it, but I guess it's very popular in Hong Kong. I suggest watching it if you're trying to learn Cantonese. It has some really cool shots of cars drifting around in this Japanese mountain. It's like a very curvy road on a Japanese mountain. This guy delivers tofu up the mountain because he works for his dad's tofu shop. His dad's like a drunk, but he was also a very gifted driver. And I think it was a really funny movie and awesome
It sounds
to watch.
interesting.
Yeah. It's like a popcorn flick. It's worth watching. A lot of cool shots and
Now you put up Initial
remotely
D
engaging.
versus Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, which
this
also features drifting. Which one would you prefer to watch?
I would prefer to watch Initial D, but only because I'm partial to Cantonese culture. There are women in the movie, but none of them are scantily clad. This is all about the boys driving. All right, this is like a ridiculous, a ridiculous movie, and I really liked it. But the next one I saw was what was it called? Barefoot Kid. I think. Barefoot Kid. Yes, the Barefoot Kid.
This is another one of those
another
attempts
Cantonese
to
movie.
improve your Cantonese.
Yes,
Which I can attest to as being great. We were just watching a stream the other night, and Julian was like, "Oh, I can read this title, Cantonese, much improved."
I read half of it, but
Well, you didn't have to tell them that much. I mean, you could have just taken the compliment.
thank you very much. I'm working on it. All right, I'll still never be understood because Chinese is a tonal language, and especially Cantonese, they'll never like the person working at a restaurant is. Well, like we're operating on a different level, of course. That's how restaurant workers work. They're like in the zone. They gotta take the order. They gotta, let's put the order out, that type of thing. So they don't have time to mess with a stupid little kid who's trying to work on his Chinese. All right. So I gotta bring the tones. I gotta step up my game. So I gotta keep watching movies.
A tonal language sounds like that's just like the upteenth degree of difficulty when it comes to speaking.
It is
like...
really you have to it's like you have to be thinking about everything you're saying, and it's really bad. But the Barefooted Kid is a kung fu movie. It came out in '93 apparently. Another Hong Kong movie. It has Maggie Cheung in it, which I think she was in.
Maggie Cheung was in Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah, that's where I knew her face from. So this was a much. Oh, she's 54. Damn. Yeah. So she was a.
Was she in Crazy Rich Asians?
Well, I think she was. No, I thought she was. Never mind. But she's a very popular actress.
The name is very familiar to me, which is why I thought, because we had done that deep dive on Crazy Rich Asians recently. Mm-hmm. But no, now I just sound like a racist.
No, she looks exactly like the woman in Crazy Rich Asians. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, so Maggie Cheung, I think she's very popular. This movie was very strange. It basically deals with how money can corrupt anyone. It follows this for like half of the movie. It follows this kid who is known as the barefoot kid. I don't know why. He's just really poor, trying to scrap his way up. He's a young martial artist, but he has no shoes. He eventually gets shoes.
Do you need shoes for martial arts? I
No,
thought,
but he
like, in
always
all the
wanted
dojos
shoes.
you walked in,
That's
they,
Japanese
like, make you
shit,
take
yeah.
your shoes off.
Yeah, no, the Asian, and I feel like Russians would take their shoes off before coming into someone's house. I think that's
Yeah, we
a
do.
very polite thing to do.
We don't wear shoes in the house because that
slippers.
just tracks outside into the inside.
You can't mix
What
the
is
two,
your problem?
unless you're a cat. But anyway,
Oh, that's true.
it's actually a remake of the 1977 film Disciples of Shaolin.
Does that mean now you have to go find and watch
Uh,
Disciples of Shaolin?
If it's in Mandarin, then I don't. But if it's in Cantonese, maybe I will. I've been pissed off at Netflix because they actually mixed up Cantonese and Mandarin a couple times. Because I've been searching through Hong Kong, like I'll search like Hong Kong movies or Cantonese movies because I just want an easy access to a movie that has Cantonese audio. And they'll mix it up sometimes, and I have to watch like the first 5 minutes of it to understand what's going on. Anyways, this movie, it's all right. I wouldn't watch this movie. It's not like there's some all right fight scenes in it, and there's I don't know. It's not that good. I'll leave it at that. The last movie I saw was
Maggie Chung, by the way, was in Hero, the Jet Li movie from 2002.
I love
which
that
is
movie.
where I know her from.
Okay, that's probably where I know her from too, because I actually really like that movie. That one I would watch again. I think that's definitely in Mandarin, though. But I would watch that one again. I watched one more movie that has slipped my mind. Shit. We'll leave it at that for now. I might think of it while Yvonne goes. But I did drink some Spike Seltzer, sponsor us. We're going to keep saying it until you guys sponsor us.
Because you played the new Mario Party.
The new Mario Party, super sick. Because 2 games, actually, holy shit, I got like... I saw... Okay, I have 3 games to talk about. I'll try to do it pretty quickly. Mario Party, amazing. Only motion controls. That kind of makes it pretty fun because I'm not good at that game anymore. Nikki, my girlfriend, we streamed on Fridays when it came out. Very good at that game for some reason. Also, beginner's luck. I'm coming at you, Nikki. I'm going to be practicing these goddamn mini games. I'm going to destroy her next time.
Which is why you had to play Mario Kart afterwards?
Yes.
Just to make sure that you won
said
everything.
She wanted to play Mario Kart. I didn't care.
After the first race, Nikki was so tilted.
I know. Look, it was a good stream. We probably weren't making much sense because we were so drunk. But Mario Party, a great time. I can imagine with 4 people, it's really awesome.
You made Laura one, like, she's like,
play.
Get a Switch, get the Mario Party so that we can play.
It's a very, very fun game. I highly suggest anyone who has access to other people to play with, couch co-op style, to definitely get this game. Worth getting. But if you're just, a solo Switch owner, you don't have many people to play games with at home, then I don't think the online mode gives you that much fun. It's all right.
I hear that if you just go to a park, you can just play with people.
Yeah, that's what I hear. You could also bring it to a rooftop party, and it will work out.
And then there's another rooftop party across the way, and they're like, hey, we have a Switch, and then you, like, play or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yvonne, if Spike Seltzer sponsors us, I will quit everything that I'm doing and just make videos using the Spike Seltzer sponsorship.
Dude, I would too.
But if they don't, can you just tell us what you did this week and what you drank?
Yeah, sounds great.
They won't.
They're not on it.
They're not
no. So this week I'll start with what I drank. So on
and I'll try to remember what movie I saw. I knew
Saturday night.
Yeah.
We had like a little soiree get together. I had my vegan
nice.
carrot cake that I made with the bananas Foster's
Again,
cream.
Let's go.
I know, right? And it was
Sponsor us.
really, really delicious. Sponsors, vegans. Um, I highly recommend the recipe that I used, which if you
Yeah.
just Google vegan carrot cake, it's basically the first result.
Wow, you didn't even like look through the ones like, oh, this one sounds interesting. Oh, I don't know about this one.
Nope.
That's
It's vegan
exactly how
carrot cake. How could it go wrong?
I
It's
don't know.
it's from the website Loving It Vegan.
Ugh.
I will say that I adjusted the recipe in that it's called for 2 cups of flour, and I
Uh-huh.
fucked up and only did 1 cup of flour, but it produced a very moist, very dense cake, and it was
Okay.
really delicious.
Yeah, I think typically vegan baked goods are a little more dense because of the lack of use of eggs and
So for this,
believe
for the
the
first time, I did a chia
butter might
egg,
be a little flour.
which is
What's a chia egg? What?
it's a tablespoon of milled or ground chia seed
Okay.
plus 3 tablespoons of water.
Cool.
And so for this recipe, it called for 2 of them, so you just do 2 of that. And it actually gets like a pretty yeasty smell, which is
Uh-huh.
really interesting. Like the only other time I smell something that is reminiscent of that is when I'm making like Russian bread or pancakes.
My
Uh,
question is, why aren't more vegans chemists? Because they have done some magic with their baked goods that has they're always like mixing these weird ass shit together, like chia seeds. What the hell is that? We
do
have
you
chia
know that you
seeds in
could
our
use
house.
a
I'm kidding.
banana to substitute for eggs?
Yeah, apparently it has a very similar consistency, and I don't know.
Also, you can make two ingredient pancakes.
What?
It's just
Just
a banana mashed up, 2
vegans?
eggs. No, it's not a vegan egg because it's. But yeah, maybe you could substitute a chia egg.
What's
Huh.
up, KW Fresh? How you doing, man?
And so then you get a
WU.
2 ingredient pancakes. It's just a banana pancake made out of bananas.
That is, and flour. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty, but hopefully we'll be able to piece it together thanks to the magic of Twitch and
And
editing
Frankenstein.
and Audacity and Yvonne. But keep going as you were. Sorry, Yvonne.
All right, so on Saturday I made an egg cream. My take on the egg cream, which
Damn.
was like 1 ounce of whipping cream mixed with an ounce of maple syrup and a shot of I think I used coffee as vodka.
Is that... Wait, you said whipping cream. I thought we were still talking about vegan stuff, but fine
No,
with me.
I moved on.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then I shook that up in a classic shaker, and then I poured that into a glass, and then I filled the rest of it with with not espresso, with Soda Stream, so that
Okay.
it was kind of like my take on the classic egg cream, and it's delicious, by the way.
Really?
Yeah,
Now,
you wouldn't think so
I...
because it's blending milk and water, but because it's heavy cream, it blends well
That's...
throughout.
Why would heavy cream blend better with water? Ask me that, and
Because
I
it's
would tell you.
thicker, more viscous. I don't
But
know.
but there's way more water in milk than there is heavy cream, and heavy cream's more like an oil. It's because
It works, dude.
it
Works.
It's way more non-polar. It makes no sense. No. Okay, keep going. That's
Anyway, and then
ridiculous.
because you put the soda in, it gives you like a nice layer of foam, so you just have
Okay.
like
Oh,
whipped
I
cream
remember
on
the
top.
third movie I saw, but keep going.
All right, what is the third movie?
It was the movie you saw a while ago on Netflix. The All the Boys I Ever Loved.
Oh yeah.
The one, it's an adaptation of a romance novel or rom-com novel, written by a Korean woman that the name, I think she's Korean, maybe she's Chinese. The name, her name escapes me right now, but I'm going to search her.
Jenny Han.
I Love Before. Jenny
Korean
Han.
American.
She is Korean, right? The last name is a huge tip-off. But yeah, this movie was all right. in terms of rom-coms, is just all right. I think I am a rom-com fan for whatever reason, and I do like high school movies. I wish there was more high school scenes. I will check that pick out in a second. We will get to it, E-Man. It might be part of the podcast if it's gonna make me laugh. He is in class. Anyways, pay attention to class, E-Man. This will be. Anyways, the the author has said in many interviews that it was really important that she was the main character was an Asian American girl or woman. She's grown up and things. So I mean, I didn't necessarily understand why that was true come from the movie. I didn't read the book. I'm sure it's very prevalent in the book. But I'm not sure the Netflix adaptation could really get it across. I was also confused as to whether, I know it's not really relevant, but the father in the movie is, he's just a white man, and then the mother, I guess, was the Korean mother. And I got that from the younger daughter and the older daughter who went to college. They both looked like they were half Asian, but the main actor is clearly not half Asian, which is fine. I mean, people can play roles that they don't look like. That's fine with me. It wasn't addressed at all in the movie, so I was confused as to whether like they were children from another man or not.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's relevant.
I had such
it's not relevant, but
also the older sister is way older.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's
like,
only like 30.
I'm a freshman in college.
She's an 18. She's, oh my god, I'm going to Scotland. No. Yeah. Anyways,
I thought she was the mom.
Minor gripes with the movie. Also, the main love interest, she's got 5, but the one that she ends up dating, the main way he likes to start sentences in the movie is like, whoa, 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 hey, what are you doing? That's just a minor gripe. Like, dude, you can start a sentence by not doing that too. But I guess Netflix, the director, liked it a lot. Anyways, that was the other movie I saw.
The screenwriter.
So
the guy Noah Centineo also reminds me absolutely like 100% of the guy from The Sandlot, the fast kid who made it to the MLB.
Yes, I remember.
I think it's a 1-to-1 comparison.
Is it the same guy? Did he grow up? Who knows?
Did he just maintain himself?
But I mean, if you're looking for a fun movie to watch, if you're like a teenage girl listening to us, then listening to the Hungover podcast.
Please reevaluate your choices.
Please
and then also go watch To All the Boys I've Loved Before.
I think you would have liked that movie. I think it's worth watching if you're like in 6th grade, a tween, if you're 16, or if you're 18. Because you can relate to 3 different characters in the movie.
I really like the movie.
I thought it was fun to watch. Again,
I actually haven't finished it though.
You didn't finish it?
No, because Laura got bored.
Understandably. Look, it's a rom-com. If you're not into rom-coms, you're not gonna like it. I think Ivan, you say you're not, but you like them. I
love rom-coms.
Okay, there we go.
Laura, it's always like, of the two of us, who would you think would like rom-coms? And it's you. I don't know. I don't understand why you like rom-coms and high school movies. Now, high school movies, I'm a convert because of you.
Yes.
But rom-coms, I've always loved.
The high school movies are so good. Tell me I'm wrong. All right? Tell me I'm wrong.
All right, 20 minutes into this podcast, and we're finally getting to my portion of it. So I'm going to try and speed through things. All right, so I've started the watch a scary movie a day for Halloween.
Halloween.
For the month of October for
it's
Halloween.
It's a popular thing. I hear.
So
Amongst the kids.
I've only missed one day, so I'll have to watch 2 movies today to make up for it. But
Tell us in the comment section below which scary movies Yvonne should see, and also what you're going to be for Halloween. Keep going.
Yes, for sure, because I need recommendations, because
Yeah.
the things that I wanted to watch, I'm going through really quickly.
I can imagine.
So I started off with a movie that I thought I had seen before, for like trailers and things, but I don't think this is the same movie I was thinking of. Anyway, Friend Request was the first movie I started with. So I set a low bar
Right.
for these movies, because this is a really bad movie. It's the main plot. There's a girl who tries to make nice with a super loner at college.
Okay.
And then all of her friends start dying.
That's one way.
After that girl kills herself.
God damn it.
and it's a whole thing, and it's bad, and there's not a lot of interesting things that happen. But I got Laura to watch, and she's like, oh, wow, horror movies can have some interesting plots. And here's the thing about a horror movie. If it takes you more than one sentence to tell somebody what the horror movie is, it's automatically a bad horror movie.
Yes. This agree on.
And if you don't execute it well, it's also a bad horror movie.
Yes. There are a lot
this
of ways
one
to
had a
screw
great
up
premise.
Uh-huh.
Social media as like the main medium for a killer stalking you. And if you're friends with and she notifies the people she's going to kill ahead of time via social media by friending them. It's really cool.
That's awesome. Watch The Shining. Damn.
Oh, The Shining? Yeah,
Classic.
I've seen it before, so
Classic.
I will definitely do. I was going to do...
Set aside 5 hours to watch The Shining, the longest fucking scary movie ever. But it's a great movie.
Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece.
No, it's a great movie.
Then the next one I watched was As Above, So Below. I feel pretty bad because I wasted this one too early in the run. As Above, So Below is a found footage film, which is its only drawback. But it's basically National Treasure as a horror movie meets Dante's Inferno in the catacombs of Paris. Okay. And this is the first film to receive permission from the Parisian government to film in the catacombs. And everything was practically done down there, which made it very difficult to shoot, but the results are pretty fantastic. It has some horror and some scares, and it's really, really good. So I'm judging these movies that I'm watching by how many CatTuber YouTube videos does it take for me to feel normal again. And the only one I've actually needed CatTuber videos for so far was As Above, So Below.
Okay.
So, that I really highly recommend that one.
Okay, very good. Look, I am a little bitch when it comes to scary movies, but they are also like it's so interesting that the neurotransmitters for like comedy and horror are very closely related, and I don't know why. Like your natural reaction can be to laugh when you watch one of these scary movies, but I don't know if I could ever do, for instance, like the next level of horror above, the next, unsettlingly disturbing movies is probably VR. I don't know if I could ever do a VR experience, a horror VR experience.
I couldn't do Resident Evil in VR.
You think so? You couldn't?
I couldn't.
Yeah, that's
not
much,
without
right?
shitting myself.
I don't know if I could do any VR experience without ever doing. I don't know. It seems like a very intense experience. I want to try, not horror. That's not where I'm starting, but maybe I'll start with Job Simulator.
That looks like a really fun game.
That game's supposed to be very fun. Yeah. There's also apparently a pretty good shooter, first-person shooter on PSVR VR right now. I hear.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, Vaughn, is that it? Those are your horror movie recommendations thus far into October. Will
Well,
you
those
have
are the
more
first
later?
two. Then I watched Intruders. This one bears no discussion. It's a home invasion movie, which you would think I love,
Okay.
um, because I
Like
love home
like
invasion
a
movies.
Panic Room almost.
Um, it's kind of like that, but not really. It's like, what if, what if the intruders got stuck in
Or
Panic
not
Room?
twice. What is the Did you ever see this Keanu Reeves movie? This movie is fucking classic ass. Oh my god, we've got a great subscriber. Thank you so much, Comrade Boyar. You can subscribe. Remember, if you have Twitch Prime, you can subscribe to my channel. If you have Amazon Prime, sorry, you also have Twitch Prime, you can subscribe to my channel for free. Gotta go to your painting class. Man, college is great.
Have a good day, dude.
Have a great day, man. But yeah, so there's this weird horror movie. Sorry, I completely interrupted you to talk about Keanu Reeves, my
No
favorite
worries.
actor. There's this
Yeah,
very
I
strange.
figured.
He's my fucking favorite actor, aside from Nicolas Cage.
Also, actually,
going.
I have a
I'll
recommendation
stop.
for you. I started this movie, but I couldn't finish it. Speaking of Keanu
Johnny
Reeves,
Mnemonic?
Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder are in a movie together, and you can watch it on Amazon. It's called
Is it-
Destination Wedding.
Destination Wedding. I
I
think
watched the
I've
first
heard of
5
this.
minutes.
Don't they get
It's pretty
married,
good.
right? They get
I
married.
don't spoil. I haven't seen anything.
Motherfucker, I think. Oh, yeah, I know the story. I know this. Well, I know that they're technically actually married because they had a real.
You're spoiling
Spoiler
the movie.
alert. They're married. Anyways, Keanu Reeves rides a motorcycle. Is a great man. I'm done.
I'm not listening.
I'm done. It's over. It's over. I'm done
Oh,
spoiling
Knock
a movie
Knock
I've never
is the-
seen.
Knock Knock is the movie that you were
Knock
thinking
Knock.
of.
Okay, yeah. It's unrelated, but also has one of the best Keanu Reeves scenes I've ever. Just in terms of dialogue and obviously performance, he's a stellar actor. But holy crap, there is a scene where he talks about pizza, and I will tell you, it is amazing. Keep going, Yvonne.
Interesting. Okay.
It's worth watching the movie just for that one scene. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, Intruders is worthless. Don't even waste your time. I'm
Knock
wasting my time, so you don't have to. I also watched the Belko Experiment, which has just a litany of good actors.
I figure we're 8 days in. Shouldn't you have at least 7 movies to talk about?
Yeah. James Gunn. He was the director who got taken off of the Guardians of the Galaxy series. He wrote the movie. So his brother is Sean Gunn, who's like the weird pirate who kind of helps them in Guardians too.
Okay.
He was also in Gilmore Girls. James Gunn puts Sean Gunn in every movie he makes. So Sean Gunn's in it, but also John C. McGinley who played the elder statesman doctor from Scrubs is in it. The guy who plays the president in Scandal is in it, Tony Goldwyn.
Okay.
It's got a bunch of people. Michael Rooker's in it too. He is Yondu from The Hitchhiker's, or not The Hitchhiker's Guide, Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyway, bunch of people. It's not that great. It's really well shot. It's definitely got way bigger budget than the majority of the movies that I've been watching.
Very cool.
Or at least it looked that way. And it's a social experiment where people get trapped in an office, and then a voice says this many people need to die by this amount of time, and then all hell breaks loose.
Sounds like a scary movie to me.
It was okay. There was one scene where somebody got their head completely twisted around their body.
Wow.
And
what is this, Saw?
I know,
Jesus.
right? But by hand. Somebody
Oh,
just
God. That's horrible.
That's impossible. It would take such Herculean strength. So
okay.
now I'm getting into the section of movies that I actually liked. As Above, So Below was really good. I highly recommend that one. Um, we watched the original Halloween on Friday. So the 1978 Halloween,
Yes.
directed by John
Is
Carpenter.
that the one with Johnny Depp? No, that was
No,
Nightmare
no,
on Elm Street.
that's Nightmare. This is Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance as Loomis, and Tony Moran played Mike Myers as when he was older.
Okay.
Michael Myers. It was interesting. I had never seen it before. It was very slowly paced, but not like nothing was happening. But then the movie's like an hour and a half ish,
Yeah.
and for the first hour,
Short
almost
and
nothing
sweet.
happens.
Sweet.
And then in the last 30 minutes, everything happens.
Everyone dies.
It's really interesting. I think it's set up a lot of modern, slasher films and horror films, how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is a movie well worth seeing. It's hard to watch this movie from the perspective that it was made in, 1978. It's before even the 80s slasher films that
Yeah.
everybody knows and loves, and the
Every
whole genre
camp
was
film.
defined. So it makes this movie feel worse now that you watch it from a modern perspective, but it's actually, I think it was pretty good.
Gotta pay your due respects to the classics. All right.
That's true.
Gotta do it.
Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis is dope. She also looks exactly the same. She hasn't really aged that much. Like she's a ghost or something. Anyway, the other movie that I watched that I highly recommend, this is the one that I think is the best of all of the films that I watched for October so far, is The Conjuring.
Okay. I've heard of it. Unlike this movie Halloween, I've never heard of. No, I'm kidding. That The Conjuring, I hear, is supposed to be pretty good. Or
Yeah,
pretty scary.
it's directed by a guy who is of Malaysian Chinese descent, James Wan.
Nice. Let's
go.
Asian representation. Let's go.
It's based off of a true story. And it follows this family that moves into a new house, and this couple who are demonologist and a medium who basically help cleanse houses and hauntings. And it's really good. It's kind of like a not noir, but it's kind of like a detective thriller mixed with horror. So it's not always terrifying all the time. It actually lends itself to being really intriguing and drawing you in with here's some clues and different things. It's really, really cool. This is I think this is by far the best movie that I've seen this past week.
That's
and
awesome.
I just think that it's really an intriguing formula, and one that's well worth paying attention to. So I know that everybody in the world has already seen this movie before I have, but if you have, like me, been avoiding scary movies, this is one that's not that bad.
Where's
to
Captain
watch.
Video when you need him? That kid does not like scary movies. No, yeah, that I think Nikki has always wanted to do this type of thing where you watch a scary movie every night in October, but for some reason we never get around to doing it. So maybe we can watch a couple of the ones that you have sifted through, the 31 days of October to watch. That would be great for us. I would like to watch some of them. I think scary movies are the most engaging type of genre of movie, I feel like, because they can really captivate a wide variety of people. Everyone understands the horror of possibly dying. So I think that's one thing they've got going for them, but also they a good director and obviously actor and everything like that. Sound design is really important, can build up the tension, and that really captivates your attention, at least in the moment. So I think it's a really interesting genre of movie that I don't envy the people who have to make them, because I feel like it's a very difficult task. Of course,
But
lighting's
it's
very
often
important
how
as well.
really good directors start their careers, basically.
Yes. I feel like it's because you don't have to come up with a very complex story. Um, but if you like, you can do a simple story, but have very complex, scenes where you have the correct angle with the correct lighting, the correct sound design is
Yeah, some of the
really
shots
perfect.
that were done in The Conjuring were really, really impressive to me. So that's why that's the best one to me.
Cool. I'll
It's
I'll have
really
to check it out.
modern in how it's shot and things. So it's not Halloween is interesting and for the time was like new,
Hmm.
but has been played out since then and I have a very modern eye in terms of going back and watching it. So it's not like I'm like, "Oh, this is the first time that they did this kind of shot from the killer's perspective." No, I can't really say that. So but with The Conjuring, there are a bunch of shots in there that are designed to kind of make you feel wonky or whatever, and put you off of your like literally unbalance the audience so that they don't feel comfortable in how they're watching the things unfold.
Cool. I have to check it out. But Vaughn,
Yo,
what I'd also like to check out? It's the world's first brewery, recently
the world's
uncovered.
first brewery. Haven't you been there? Wasn't it in Brooklyn?
Yeah, the old ye old Brooklyn Brewery is the world's first. That's why it's the best beer. No, I'm kidding. There was recently a brewery. This is part of our series where we discuss three different topics, briefly, but in depth at the same time. There was a brewery uncovered in Israel, I believe. Yvonne, you've sent me a link here that I
Yeah,
will
it's in
show.
Haifa, Israel.
Yes.
Uh,
Tell us about it. This is from
s-
BBC News, coming at you live.
so it's supposed to be part of a series of artifacts that were found in this cave system by the Natufian people. And on the walls, they've discovered not just bread, which was produced here
Dude, I love bread.
by this people. They were semi nomadic hunter gatherer people who produced bread. But they found traces of alcohol and stone mortars carved into the cave floor. This presents the idea that they were brewing beers at this location. Um, and refutes the theory that beer was just a byproduct of making bread.
Okay.
So what's interesting is that this is 13,000 years old, but previously to this, it was thought that beer brewing was a byproduct of bread making and it was only 5,000 years old.
Wow.
So there's just a jump of 8,000 years, which in archaeological terms is like a billion years, basically. It would redefine how kind of like the flow of discovery for humanity in terms of food products,
Yes.
I think, and it's just a really interesting way of looking that we found we're discovering new things about ourselves from so many thousands of years ago.
Right, of
I
course,
think that's
and
what.
and the reason why this type of discovery is really important. I mean, a jump of 8,000 years is huge, but I mean, if they're brewing beer, you can automatically assume they had some sort of civilization and structure to their society. So it's not like even like, oh, they started society 5,000 years ago. No, they started it clearly 13,000 years ago at least. So we weren't just hunting and gathering back then. We were obviously that was part of it, but they were clearly, or humans clearly were thinking outside of the box, and we're making beer and bread. That's amazing to think about. I mean, I can hardly do those things in general. I tried to make beer at home, and that shit was horrible. And I'm a chemist.
Yeah, but it would have been more like the beer of old. I mean,
It
the
probably would
the
have.
beer of old is
Very
more like a
flat.
meshy gruel type thing as opposed to the
It
things that
just
we
it
drink
probably
today.
tasted horrible. No, I can
But
imagine
it
if they were
got you
drinking
drunk.
it. If they were drinking it, I can imagine it didn't taste that bad. Well, yeah, I can imagine it wasn't like very outrageously bitter, I feel like they would reject these types of flavors, things that are way too bitter or sour or well, maybe not spicy. I feel like all humans love spicy food. That's a lie.
No,
But
there are
yeah,
some people that I know that have said that celery is too spicy.
I sometimes question why some people are alive. That is crazy.
Oh my God.
But so, anyways, I think this is a cool discovery. Thanks for bringing it up, Ivan. Um, of course, really interesting that, even 13,000 years ago, we were still doing the same dumb shit, boofing and drinking beer. I love beer and things like that. So that's great to know. What types of other, I mean, it's so difficult. So like the field of archaeology is um, a lot of inferencing and interpretation and piecing puzzles together. They find all these things that they have to be super careful with, that are mostly just, they've been calcified in rock, in various minerals. So it's very difficult to understand what exactly it is that they're looking at. Obviously, these people have studied these things for a very long time. They have PhDs and things like that. They're experts in the field. But it's still, I mean, if you look at the picture, it looks like a very small hole. And I'll try to describe what I'm looking at as an inexperienced archaeologist at best, and also to the audio listeners. It looks like a little round hole in a rock. And somehow they've come to the conclusion. I mean, I'm just looking at a picture. They clearly have more evidence, but they've come to the conclusion that this is a brewery. So I think that's pretty cool that they can uncover all these things, and that it was all intact enough for them to make the assumption, which is probably well backed,
I think
that it's a brewery.
It's more that the technology has advanced so far that they can take like trace cuts of the inside of these mortars, and there are a bunch of the cave itself is pocketed with these mortar holes, and so they were like 24 inches deep.
Yeah.
Some of them, and so you can take scrapings from them and do an analysis of them to find out what was put in there, and that's how they were able to suggest that beer was brewed there from the analysis of what came back from there. So having the alcohol in there, the oats and different things that were in there as well.
Has technology advanced so far that we're now recreating the scene in The Dark Knight where he recreates the bullet and the thumbprint on it? Come on, that is awesome. Let's go, archaeologists. There was really alcohol residue on that?
Yeah.
That is amazing. Holy.
So that's how they figured it out.
I mean, what is ethanol going to decompose into? Not much. So I just feel like it would have evaporated, but I guess it was covered, so there was no possible way.
They discovered trace of wheat and barley based alcohol.
That's cool. That is really cool.
I don't know what levels it was or what form it was or how it was preserved.
It would be pretty fun. It probably was not preserved at all. The alcohol preserved it. What are you talking about? No. It's probably, I feel like that would be hilarious if we assumed this and it was actually just fermented on its own after. I'm kidding. No, I'm
or
sure
people just came in 5,000 years later and were brewing beer in the same holes. Hey, look, there are perfect beer brewing holes here.
No, I know they have, through carbon dating, they have ways to tell how old each compound is and how old the rocks are. So that's how they know these things are 13,000 years old. I think that's really exciting. But yeah, until we find the next oldest brewery, Ivan, you want to move on? I feel like
let's go forward.
Exciting. Speaking of old things, weren't we going to talk about old news? Maybe some global warming. That's such old news nowadays. Come on.
I know.
What did you have to you brought two topics to the table, Ivan. What is new in the world of old global warming?
So, a landmark UN report paints a far more dire picture
Can
of
you
the
send
immediate
me the link to
consequence
that, please?
of. Yeah, so this is. I'm getting this from Science, and also the New York Times Science
Two
section is covering
credible
this.
fake news sources. Yes.
um, Essentially saying that the climate is going further faster, and that the 2 degrees Celsius mark that was put at the Paris Accords in 2015 is just not enough regulation. It actually needs to be brought down to 1.5. And we've already gone past to 1 degree Celsius of global heating. So we're already 2/3 of the way to a point which we can't really return from, and that a lot of our ecosystems will change. Not you personally, but people might say, hey, 2 degrees Celsius or 1.5 degrees Celsius, what is that? Or that doesn't seem like a lot. But the difference is that raising the temperatures of the oceans just even a little bit will really disrupt algae cycles and different things. So oxygen production from algae and removing carbon dioxide actually from the Earth's atmosphere. Algae, the oceans do a lot of that cycling. And so disrupting that kind of thing will really put in a lot of hurt to the way that the world is currently functioning. And so they're saying that the damage from avoiding the most serious damage requires transferring the world economy within just a few years, said the authors. And this was like 60 authors from 40 different countries analyzing 6,000 plus scientific articles, who estimate that the damage would come at a cost of $54 trillion.
Jeez, that's a lot.
Yes, so $54 trillion, but this is to make the world
A better
like
place.
a survivable place. And it's an interesting thing because they say that the world is on course to reach 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius change by late or early 2050. So like 2052, between 2040 and 2052. Which you also might think that's way off. Who cares?
I don't
But the
care.
thing is that it's all a snowballing effect, and I know
Of
that
course.
you, Julian, are personally somebody who's heavily invested in trying to make the climate.
I love snowballing in Overwatch, but I definitely cannot tell you enough how important this is. If you are at all interested in having children in your lifetime, this is a huge thing that we need to tackle now, because their lives are going to be miserable, and possibly end early because of various natural disasters that will be ramping up in intensity, such as hurricanes. Of course, you said that the overall ocean temperature and of course the overall climate temperature, the average climate temperature on the planet Earth will has risen and will rise, even up to 2 degrees Celsius is going to change things a lot. That's because I mean, you mentioned algae. That's obviously part of it, but if you think about how we talked about this 2 weeks ago or a week ago, not last week, we were discussing the hurricane that recently hit the southeast coast of America,
Florence.
Hurricane Florence. That was a very intense hurricane, although I believe it was predicted to be a little worse than it ended up being for North Carolina. But I mean, it's meteorology is a very difficult science. But the basics of how and why there are hurricanes on the east coast of America as opposed to the west coast of America is because of all the warm currents coming up from the ocean in the south, Atlantic Ocean. So the warm air above the oceans there and the temperature of the ocean allows a lot more water to evaporate. And that sort of gets swept up and whirled into a hurricane that will obviously, if the temperature keeps rising, will get much more intense and will probably wipe out the east coast of America in the year 2050. Well, what was the movie called?
Day After Tomorrow.
The Day After Tomorrow. Yeah, it would probably end up being like that. We'll see the head of the Statue of Liberty smashing into Lower Manhattan. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that movie in college. Oh boy. Yeah. So I mean, it's really bad.
And so the
CO2
goal of
reached,
the report is to like forecast what needs to happen, and so they're saying like CO2 needs to come down 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, which is a difficult task to accomplish, and reach net zero by 2050.
So the overall production of CO2 that is monitored, I guess they just have a percentage or a parts per million value.
Mm-hmm.
They say that they want that to be 50% lower, you said? Or
45% lower by 2030 and net zero by 2050.
Okay.
So that would mean that net zero is a ridiculously difficult task. I think it's necessary. But think about all the cars that we use, all of the coal emissions that we use to power our electricity.
Right. No, exactly. So it is also an ethical issue, based on just how people live their lives and how they've become accustomed to living their lives in 2018. You know, so I mean, how the hell are we going to generate electricity in very rural? I hate that word. I can never pronounce it. But
the
rural areas in America, in all over the world, in Africa and in Asia. I mean, how can we expect emerging countries that are just beginning to, third world countries that are just, trying to catch up in terms of economics and financial stability? How can we expect people to just stop using cars there, to stop using cars to transport goods, things like that? How can we expect them to just stop because, oh no, the global warming is going to happen, right? So it's not an immediate threat, although it really is. But how can we expect to just immediately stop living the lives that cars are a really big source of CO2 emission, but as we have discussed in the past, so is the cultivation of meat in various first world countries like America. For instance, like beef production, that's also a large source of CO2 emission. The whole, raising and slaughter of cows and pork and chickens, that there's a lot of energy that has to go into doing that. So can we just stop doing that? Can we just stop? And then there's obviously, it has in this picture, coal-fired thermal power plants. That I believe, that's generally how a lot of electricity is formed, is produced in various countries, burning of coal. I think that is a place to start. I think we can start replacing infrastructure and how we generate electricity. I think we can start there. I think it'll be a lot more difficult to stop, for instance, usage of cars. I don't know. We can't just all get Teslas, So how are we going to do that? It's a difficult.
Yeah, I think
task.
you can force the emission standards to be so high that people have to adopt hybrids and then to full electric vehicles as the technology improves.
I agree. I mean, but that again takes a lot of political movement and you have to change a lot of people's minds. That's I think where we really have to start, is getting people to understand how immediate the effects of global warming are, and how we've actually already started to see the effects of increased CO2 emission from honestly the Industrial Revolution. It started back then. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a much more in-depth global warming podcast if you want to check that out through our iTunes or SoundCloud. It's something that I think that we're very passionate about in terms of making sure that people understand what's going on. And the best way for you to make an impact on what's happening is to make sure that you're registered to vote and that the people who you're voting for are going to be people that support your version of good science. So remember that the midterm elections are coming up very soon. So the deadlines to register to vote very, very upcoming or might be coming to a close depending on your state.
Of course, we're just specifically we have international viewers. So, of course, we're just discussing the American midterm elections.
Right.
Yes. Because we don't know when your elections are. I think there was just an election in Brazil.
Yeah, it's still ongoing. There's a runoff.
Yes. Hope it's not that guy that is this guy.
Jair Bolsonaro.
That guy. Anyways, and also, I mean, keep in mind, we always make a huge deal about the presidential elections every 4 years. And I believe we'll hopefully in 2 years we'll still have a podcast, and maybe we'll have grown by then. And maybe we'll have, a platform to talk on. But of course, I believe the midterms are probably just as important or more important because you can impact directly change in America. I think a lot more. You'll see a lot more change if you. Yeah, so sometimes it can seem like you're not affecting anything with your vote in America, but I think if you come out to the midterm elections, you'll typically see, like for instance, the getting the House majority in American politics is really important. I think you'll see a lot more change over the years if you start coming out to midterm elections and things like that. So.
Yeah, it's really especially important if like things like the Brett Kavanaugh nomination really
really riled you up.
Yeah, if the result wasn't what you wanted, the best way to make sure that doesn't happen again is to make sure that the people who were in charge of acceding to that nomination, like saying yay or nay, they aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
So do your best to make sure that the people who, the people who represent you represent exactly what you want to represent.
Yeah, it's very important to understand who your senators are and what they're doing, because I think in the past 2 years we've seen a lot of senators and people with a lot of power get away with a lot of things that they shouldn't have done. Anyways, Ivan, speaking of higher ups screwing over the people below them, our final topic of the day is the untimely and abrupt closure of a video game studio named Telltale. They are known for games such as Walking Dead. Telltale's The Walking Dead. They have also made they make games. If you don't know, maybe you're not a gamer. Then you probably wouldn't know about this company, but they make sort of, as far as I know, I've actually never played one of their games, but I definitely follow. I know a lot of people love their games. They make sort of story-based point-and-click adventures. They started off making games like Jurassic Park. They always use license, not always, but the majority of their games were licensed IP from like Jurassic Park, Back to the Future. That's where they got their start. But they didn't really come into mainstream gaming media until they got the license The Walking Dead. I think that was back in 2000, the early 2000s or mid 2000s, I believe. That came out on the Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. And that game really took off. It was just on The Walking Dead's climb to the top of the AMC charts. It's a very popular show, and that was a very popular game. They went on to get various other licenses, such as Game of Thrones, another very popular show.
Right.
And then they also made The Wolf Among Us, which was a very popular game to some. They also got the Batman license, so they made a Batman.
And The Wolf Among Us was Fable?
I'm not sure. I don't know about that game, unfortunately. I try to play as many games as possible, but honestly, I couldn't get into their games, that style of game.
The Fables comic book series.
It was. I didn't know that was I thought that was an original thing, but nonetheless, Telltale Games has shut their doors and pretty much gone declared bankruptcy, and they laid off, as is common in the video game world, and various productions, things like this. They get a bunch of people together for a job, and as soon as that job is done, these people are laid off. So they actually ended up laying off, I believe, 225 people. So those are 225 people, not all of which, moved out to, I don't know where, I assume it's somewhere on the West Coast, their studio. Moved out there, started a family there. They worked on these games for years, and then now they're just laid off. They have no job anymore. So, and this was also
and without
very
guarantee
abruptly.
of a lot of pay.
Right, there was no severance, no nothing. It was so abrupt that the people working, the developers themselves at the company, had no idea. And
which is technically against labor
Yes.
law, California labor law.
Mhm.
So I think there is I think there is a class action lawsuit that is either in the works or has already been set against Telltale Studios by the workers.
I think their
which is
official
good.
name is Telltale Games. Sorry, their official name. But
So the studio really did some damage to the relationship with the their developers
and
over the course of time, and especially at the end here.
And not to mention, they did this amidst the middle of the final season. So they released their games in episodes. Typically, a game is just released. But these games, each season of the game follows a story arc. And they release typically, I believe, 4 or 5 episodes. So each one is you can buy it standalone, but it's part of a longer arc. They were releasing, their most popular series, The Walking Dead game. In the last season, they stopped in the middle because their company just went bankrupt. So there was clearly some poor management in the of this studio, obviously not to any fault of the developers making these games. I believe it's honestly like the CEO or CEOs of this company were just, they couldn't secure funding, or they spread their funding out too much, and they didn't manage, they didn't keep enough in the bank to pay these people that clearly deserve to be paid, and just they spent years of their life making these games for people that obviously people really love these games, but they weren't clearly not making enough money to pay everyone and also pay out the royalties to these licenses and things like that. So a really tragic story, I think.
It's a lot of.
Did you ever play these games, by the way?
I played The Walking Dead, Batman, and the one that's based
Batman,
off of Borderlands.
Oh yeah, they also made Tales from the Borderlands, right?
Yeah. So I thought the games were fun to a certain extent. It's interesting to have exert such influence on a storytelling but they weren't as like intensely action packed or whatever as other games, so I did find them boring after a while, but I thought the storytelling was very, very good.
Yeah,
I
that's
I
the whole
think
point.
personally you could have like a Telltale game storytelling wise integrated into something that's a little bit more action packy.
Uh
Like
huh.
I don't understand how or why that would be such a difficult concept to do, but Telltale is an ex was an excellent game producing studio in terms of like the quality of the product they produced. I thought was pretty good. It generally felt like it was slow for the iterations of what was happening, but they were working on so many things. The amount of hours they had their developers working and things like that is just crazy. So I think that there's a lot of good and bad that we can take from what happened to Telltale. The games they were producing, I think a lot of people thought that they were very good and necessary to, play in the modern age.
Yeah,
But the practices delivering those games really needs to be re-examined.
I think so. I think every game studio is looking at this right now, and or every game developer, and they're thinking, could I be next? Because I think a lot of this one was a huge. This is no small company. It's 225 people that just don't have a job right now, or I'm sure. Well, I don't know. I can't speak to whether or not they have a job right now, but um, they it's really important to examine the video game industry right now and how these games are produced, because I think a lot of these a lot of the developing companies and how they're structured is clearly not regulated at all, because these companies, as clearly shown, and you looked up just before, of the various other video game developer companies that have been shut down recently. I believe a huge one under EA is Visceral Studios. They
Yeah,
make
Visceral closed
great games, or they
October
made great
17th
games.
last year.
Yeah, they
Dead
closed
Space,
last year.
Battlefield Hardline were two of their major titles.
Yeah, so it's not even like, oh, it's just the smaller studios that close down. No, this is still a problem for larger studios. No one has any job security in this industry, and it's a very passionate industry that, the developers, people coming out of college right now, and people who have been in the industry for a long time, they love video games, they love making video games, and they love seeing people like their video games. It's a very passionate industry. I'm sure everyone who worked on The Walking Dead loved that series. I'm sure they loved making the game to a certain extent. I mean, they put their blood, sweat, and tears into the game. So it's hard to I think it's hard to believe that they didn't love the game they were making, but they obviously didn't love the way they were treated in the end, which is just, I think it obviously an injustice to them, but I feel like this is exactly how an industry operates when it's unregulated and there's no job security. So in America, I mean, we have a lot of industries, and a lot of industries such as like such that are similar, like movie making, do have unionization, that protect the people working from working, being forced to work overtime, and at the expense of their health and things like that. As far as I know, that's what I think. How
So
and not
yeah,
all
that's a
productions work
lot
that
of
way, but
what the
unionize.
problem of Telltale is, for instance, is that there's a lot of constant crunch, basically. And when you're a contractor, working on one set game and going from one contract to another, you're basically forced to produce a lot of work, just like in an environment that is really intense with a lot of hours, and that really puts a lot of stress on not just the person who's developing, but their family relations, their friend relations. There's been a lot of articles and talk about how crunch in game development specifically is affecting game developers and the need to readjust and realign. And the thing that a lot of employees of Telltale have begun talking about or have been talking about is the amount of pressure of crunch and different things that they were consistently under, and the feeling of job insecurity that kind of provides.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, this sucks.
There's not a lot from the business practices that I of like the actual development of the games that I think is really great. I think the things that are really awesome from Telltale is like they were allowing their developers or people doing the pitches to think big and to not have to tailor themselves to what they thought would be acceptable, but to really try and go for it in different ways. And those are really good pieces of to take away from how Telltale was designing the games or thinking about how a game would go. Mm-hmm. But some of the practices of actually putting that game out, I think, need to be revamped for other game studios.
Yeah, no, I really hope that we can see these types of practices change in the video game industry, coming forward and going forward, as we're in 2018 now. I mean, games have been produced now for over 30 years now, so yeah, many video game franchises have just hit their 30th anniversary. That's great, but how many people have slaved over many hours to make those games? So I really hope that this is a good lesson for, I mean, I hate to make an example of many people losing their jobs, but I hope this is a great lesson for video game developing studios and publishers, the people that fund these things, and maybe set a deadline to make this game by this deadline, or else I hope that the video game industry can change and help these people out, because they're really getting worked almost to death at this point. And this is obviously coming from the outside. We don't know. We have talked to a video game developer once on our podcast. We got a very kind man. His name was Mike Perilla. He works for NetherRealm Studios. You can go follow him on Twitter, but he obviously told us a little about quote unquote crunch time, which is Ivan discussed it, but it's the time in which we're getting closer to deadlines. We need everyone to work 10 hours of overtime every day. So it's like crazy, and there's no sort of regulation against that, and I really hope that people can put their health first when taking one of these jobs. So, and also job security first. That's really important. But apparently they're gonna finish the Walking Dead game. I don't know how I would feel as one of these developers that had worked on it for so long, got laid off, and then saw that they're outsourced. Apparently, I think they're outsourcing it to some other studio.
So it's like the person who produces the comics, his entertainment studio would finish developing, but they are hoping that people will hire on the people who are released from Telltale to finish the game. So Telltale has been advocating somewhat for their workers to be hired. For instance, they were hoping to put on a job fair for the people released previously and things like that. So there have been some signs that Telltale is attempting to do well by their former employees.
Well, I feel like that's just a media move anyways. Or I don't know. It's a shitty situation all around. I hope these people land on their feet, and I mean, obviously it's 2 weeks after the fact that we're talking about this. I hope they have already landed on their feet, rather, and I hope they go on to make great games in the future. If they decide to stay in this industry, I think this is a pretty, big middle finger to them. You've worked so hard on this. Thanks for making this game. All right, see ya. Just your job and livelihood is ended right now. So I don't know. It's pretty shitty. I hope the video game industry changes. I spend a lot of money on video games, but I don't know where the money is actually going. So I should probably look into that. That's why I try not to. I don't know. It does. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, I hope things work out for the Telltale Studio developers, and I hope they get to make the games they want to make at a reasonable pace that they can handle. Ivan?
Yes.
We end our podcast every single week in a song in a segment called Hungover Radio. This is where you, the listener and viewer, can send in your music to gaminghungover@gmail.com. The link is in the description below. You can check it out. Today, no one has sent in a song, so I get to pick one. And this is from a game I actually didn't talk about, so I'll talk about it next week. It's called Nier Automata. First, I need to find it. But I just picked that game up. It was pretty cheap on Steam, so I decided to pick it up. And I've been wanting to play it for a while. Very exciting game. It's an RPG published by Square Enix, made by Platinum Games, another developer that may have, that makes a lot of games. So be on the lookout for them. But Nier Auto. We usually get a song before, but I don't know. we sort of, okay. Cool. We're gonna play the Resistance Camp song from Nier Automata. I think it has a really great soundtrack, actually. So I do really like the music in the game. It's sort of like a Ghost in the Shell vibes, if you've ever watched that anime.
Cool.
So I like the music from that anime, but this obviously is from Nier Automata. So I hope you guys enjoy the song. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes. Thanks for coming out to the podcast, everyone. And of course, thank you, Ivan, for giving us such great topics.
Thank you, Julien.
Yes, thank you, everyone. We're going to end the podcast now, and I have to go to the bathroom, and I also have to leave. So, goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Deus.